Hello and namaste. This is Vinay Khanduri, your host for this special episode of NBP Hot Seat. Today we are here with Dr. Nitendra Singh, who is president of the Indian Nuclear Society, IYNS, and our topic of discussion with him is Project Suk-M, an IYNS initiative to design and develop India's first microreactor. Suk-M or Sookshma, as they call it, literally means small or very small, translating to micro in English. This is quite an interesting initiative and very incredible concept in that sense that it is an entrepreneurial venture by Indian youth to support the country and industries in terms of sustainable and reliable energy transition and help decarbonize several of the energy intensive application. This would also showcase the kind of entrepreneurial opportunities that lies in the Indian nuclear sector that youth can pursue with and participate on a larger scale. So, with this brief introduction, Dr. Nitendra, I welcome you on this special episode of NBP Hot Seat. Good to have you here.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Vinay, and thanks a lot to Nuclear Business Platform for this kind of discussion.
Yeah. So, starting, with the brief about IYNS, we know that IYNS has been engaged in quite a lot of nuclear-related awareness activities in India, but now it has taken a quite important initiative, a major initiative to design and develop this microreactor Suk-M, which would be country's first microreactor, and hopefully it will lead to a successful end. So could you elaborate on this project and what inspired you and your team to get on to take up this initiative? Please, floor is yours.
Sure, Vinay. Um, I'll add a little bit from the beginning because when IYNS started, it was actually started for the outreach activities, and you have rightly mentioned we are trying to do as much as we can in the country as well as in collaboration with international organizations. But as and when we found out that there is a requirement or need of doing something else, for example, of climate change, so we started our activity aligned in climate change as well, and nuclear being one of the solution or one of the most effective solution, I would say, for climate change, we aligned all our activity towards that as well. And later on, when we signed a declaration with the Clean Energy Ministerial for NEAS declaration,
Mhm.
which is for the nuclear innovation in clean energy, and then we started our innovation activities as well. And this is in line with that we realized that India is in a way energy poor country. We need a
Yes.
lot of energy to, of course, to get developed. That's an ambition and a goal, but even to improve the lives of our citizen.
Yes.
And as we see there, the energy dynamics globally is changing every day. So we need to have a sustained to have a sustained development of the country. We need to have a big source of energy. And currently, all those energies coming mainly from the fossils,
Yes.
which is not really good for the environmental factor. So that's what we thought, that if we follow the current 2047 timeline of Viksit Bharat,
Yeah.
we realize that we will need almost three times of what we are consuming today in terms of energy. So
Correct.
currently we are consuming close to 10,000 terawatt hour. We need to have at least three times of that
Correct.
to be like to have a good life in the Viksit Bharat, as we say. So now this is possible if we can, I mean, if you continue to go for the fossils, it's not really good for climate because
Correct.
it's global challenge and crisis. But if you can decarbonize this as well as maintain the energy security, nuclear is the correct solution for that. And to achieve this, um, this is majorly coming because if you want to have a growth, you need to have industry running for your country development. You will also have the alternative fuels which need to be produced. For example, if you go for hydrogen economy, which is India's policy, you need to have a
Mm.
energy source for that, as well as for biofuels or algae based fuel on that sort of thing. You need to have energy in that direction. So this is all driving to have a big energy demand,
Correct.
and we need to have a decarbonized energy demand of that sense, and that's where the nuclear is the answer.
Correct.
And to have that sort of scale up, it is not really easy for it's a really humongous task to be achieved.
Correct.
And that's where we thought like youth need to play a role,
Correct.
and that's inspired IYNS to actually create a path where this sort of initiative can be led by youth, the country's youth, which is India is being one of the youngest country in the world, so why not? So it should be youth led and industry driven.
Wonderful.
So that was
Wonderful.
the real motivation for that.
That's quite inspiring. Quite inspiring. Now,
Thanks.
just as you mentioned, right, about your initiative. So now I would like to understand, what are the important design feature of this micro reactor, and then what timeline you foresee or you have worked out, for its development,
Mhm.
demonstration, and commercialization.
Um, so design feature, we are targeting to have a 10 megawatt electric microreactor, which will be
Okay.
close to 35, 40 megawatt thermal, depending on efficiency. That's what we are designing. And we are going for molten salt reactor types.
Okay.
And why particularly molten salt? Because it has inherent design features which are really in line with India's existing resources,
Mm-hmm.
as well as additional or fail-safe safety design
Mm-hmm.
features.
Mm-hmm.
And with this particular type of reactor, we can utilize the thorium cycle in addition with the uranium. And India is the biggest reserve of thorium.
Wonderful.
So that's what we are trying to have it. And timeline is currently, of course, it will evolve, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But what we are planning, so we have decided to have different phases.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the conceptual phase, the ideation phase, where we'll do engineering design, and the development phase.
Mm-hmm.
So ideate and develop, followed by the full-scale prototyping, and then licensing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the five-phase program we are planning in that
Okay.
sense. And we are already in discussion with the regulatories. And the current timeline is that we want to have our concept ready by 2025,
Wonderful.
by
Wonderful.
the end of next year. And we want to have ideation, the more engineering based calculations, once the concept is ready by 2027, and by 28 to have a developed plan, a developed design, which should be going for the prototype.
Oh,
And we want to have this prototype ready by 2030. That's the timeline we are following, and following which we'll go for the final phase, or we will say the licensing phase from 2030 onwards,
oh,
which
wonderful.
we expect that it should take not more than 1 year. So maybe 2031, 2032, we should be ready with the licensed one.
So,
So
and
yeah,
then
this is
post 31, it will be ready for your commercial phase.
we are hoping for that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, and the good thing is that it, because you are kind of, attempting to make use of thorium, so it basically aligned with the overarching strategy of India to make best utilization of the thorium reserves that is it has.
Precisely.
Okay. And now I would like to understand, yeah, as you were mentioning about regulatory thing, right? Right. So, how you are, how do you propose to take up the regulatory consent and further licensing for the microreactor? Just want to understand, are you going in parallel with them, or you would
Yeah.
just work at your own end, and then later when it's ready, then you will approach regulatory? Are you working in parallel with them?
Here I will take, I mean, I'll start with an happy thing because when we were thinking about it couple of years back, the scenario in the country was not that in line.
Mhm.
Currently, with governmental initiatives and also initiatives which is coming from Department of Atomic Energy towards small reactors, this is changing, and that's where we get a good start, I would say. And so, for the first time, we announced our reactor in India Nuclear Business
Mhm.
Platform event, and that's when we met the regulators as well, and they were quite happy with this.
Wonderful.
And the interesting part is the regulators are in line with our ambition and vision. And to add up to your question, we are actually engaging with regulators right from the conceptual phase,
Mhm.
which is really a new approach
Yes.
based compared to what a country already have. And why this is so, because we want to minimize the licensing time somehow.
Yes. Yes.
So if the regulator is participating since conception phase, they know in and out of everything, and as and when they want to
Yes.
interrupt or intervene or want to have some sort of design validation or changes, we can make
Yes.
them on the go. So as
Wonderful.
and when the reactor is fully ready, they already know all the
Correct.
scenarios of it.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's the idea, and we are already in
Precisely.
discussion with the regulators.
Precisely. Precisely. And it will kind of reduce this developmental time to large extent.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wonderful. Great approach. Now, supply chain stakeholders, right? They also play a big role in
Yes.
success of any project. So, what are the key
Yes. Yes.
stakeholders you are engaging with to develop this supply chain?
Um, I would say I'll start with this, that what we are creating is a people's project. It's not
Hmm.
our project, or it's not any individual private company's project, or in that sense. Um, we want people to feel that it's their own thing and it's their own project and it's their own contribution to the society. That's how
Yes.
we are building. And that's why we are trying to include everyone to the project, starting with we are collaborating with a lot of universities and university students,
Okay.
and they are very much interested in that sort of innovative project where they can also contribute. And that doesn't mean that we are limited to only IITs and NITs or STEAM institutions, because that's how everyone is doing. But we feel that talent is not limited to certain institutions. We are trying to make it broader.
Hmm.
So this is one. So universities and research institutions. In addition, we want to establish a dedicated indigenous supply chain for all micro and small modular reactors. And that means that it's not only the big giants who are contributing, they should also have a support of all MSMEs, the medium and
Yes.
small, micro, small, and medium
Correct.
enterprises. And so that's why we are already in discussion with CII and MSME
Okay.
representatives, so that we can develop uh, these industries together,
Yes.
and we can have our own supply chain. So that's
Okay.
what we are working out. That's
Wonderful.
the biggest strength we feel our country have, and
Yes.
this is exactly in line with the Make in India approach and
Yes.
Atmanirbhar Bharat. So if we have all these sort of things, then why not to use them together? That's the
Wonderful.
plan.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then, coming to the, cost part, it plays a very important role, to improve the
Mm.
acceptability of any project among the
Yeah.
stakeholders, right? So, what are your cost estimates for commercializing this microreactor?
Yeah. This is really tricky, and that's what we are
Okay.
working out. Um, for commercialization, actually, we are aiming that our reactor should be, um, connected to grid within 12 to 24 months. Means in a
Okay.
timeline
In
of
terms of,
one
okay,
to
in
two.
terms of project timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, starting from the manufacturing to the deployment,
To
we
the
want
deployment.
to have it because it's modular in nature. So we are designing it in such a manner that it should be modular. I mean, factory assemble single
Yeah.
unit in that sense.
Okay.
So, in that sense, it can be faster, it can be
Okay.
cheaper,
Hmm.
and it can actually reduce significantly the on-site work. So
Okay.
you just carry it, put it there. That's what we want
So,
to
so
have it.
in terms of proportion, can you please let us know what would be the factory proportion of it, and what will be the on-site proportion of the entire project work?
Currently, this is what we are figuring. As I mentioned, we are in conceptual phase.
Hmm.
So, I mean, discussing this will be pretty much premature
Premature.
right now.
Okay.
But we are really targeting to have a completely assembled model which can be transported and connected there. So there, the site can be prepared in parallel when you
Hmm.
start the manufacturing. So
Okay.
that's the idea we are
So the
carrying with.
concept could be like a DG set, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, in a sense, but not exactly. But
Okay.
that's what we are trying to.
Okay. Wonderful.
So yeah, and we actually want to capitalize or utilize the economic of volume. I
Hmm.
mean, if you produce something in big number, it becomes cheaper,
Yes.
and that's what we are trying to have. And we are approximately reaching to the number which is 15 to 17 crore per megawatt.
Oh, that's
So
great. Quite
that's
impressive.
yeah, that's what our current calculation says. And
So
of course, if you have an
this would
even
be,
bigger number, it should
yeah.
reduce it further.
So yeah, yeah, and I think it will really make it cost competitive even with the large reactors. And
That's
I
what
think,
that's what the idea is.
as far as the global renewable scenario is concerned, I think it would be quite competitive with the renewable sources also.
That's what we want to do it. I mean, it make no sense if you are not actually
Correct.
creating something which is viable. I mean,
True,
if
true.
people are not happy and if they are it's not getting affordable, then it make no sense to work it out.
Quite impressive. Quite impressive.
And in India because of the volume is really big,
True.
the economic of volume plays
Yeah.
a really key role.
True, absolutely, absolutely. And now coming to about the market potential. So, what sort
Mhm.
of market potential you have you see and you have worked out for
Mhm.
installing these micro reactors, and what are the key application areas
Mhm.
in the Indian context? If you can elaborate on that.
I mean, there are many areas where we can put. I mean, you take an example or see, it doesn't require a frequent refueling. This will require a refueling after 15 or 20 years, or you can change the module after
Yeah.
15 to 20. Imagine. So it's really cool to put in an industrial zone, for example, or as we have a special economic zone where you have a multiple industry where you can put it. So that sort of thing is where we see, and the return of investment is fast. For example, if there is a big industry who has a big energy requirement, they can have it on site because it doesn't have a complex operation. That's what we are thinking. That's what we are designing it, that it doesn't have a complex operation cycle. It can be easily operated. So anyone can have it, any big industry can have it. It will be low investment in
Hmm.
that sense
Yeah.
because your return of investment will be faster, and it will be a long-term investment in that
Yes.
sense, like you are free for 10 to 15 years or 15 to 20 years,
Yes.
or you can replace it as and when it's needed. So I mean, this gives you a lot of options to be put in the country. In addition, we are also trying to have in specific zones where the for example, there are regions which where terrain is complicated. We
Hmm.
cannot have big power sources. We have
Yeah.
I mean, India has a very different
Correct.
terrain of different kinds. So there we can put, for example, you can put it in northeast, you can put it in Jammu and Kashmir, and wherever you feel like. And the design is so nice that you can put them even in high seismic zones, like seismic
Okay.
zone fives and all. So that's what we are targeting. Where other sources are becoming complicated, we will be answering that. And there are few service areas where it will be really nice. For example, the hydrogen production, which is really because we are, as I mentioned, we are going for a molten salt because it has an high temperature operation, high operating temperature. So you can use this excess heat or high quality heat or high quality steam for various applications. And the hydrogen production is one. Transportation sector will be really benefited because instead of having more EVs, if you can electrify your bigger public transport and
Mhm.
put one reactor over there, it will be
Yes.
much better in that
True.
sense. Because I feel if you are having a lot of electric vehicles but you are producing electricity with coal, then it's like make no sense.
True.
So there are things we are already working out where we can directly approach it. And also, as India is putting a lot of effort in health sector and
Yes.
putting a lot of
Hmm.
aims kind of institutions and bigger medical institutions there as well, it will be a good application. So
True.
there are many such areas where we are actually targeting. And why not things like I in one of the recent article I saw in Lakshadweep, you can put
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
develop
Yeah.
why you need to secure these so many solar panels and make this, you just dig a hole and put this, make
Hmm.
easy thing. So all these sort of small areas where it's really difficult to have a big source, it will be the best answer, I feel.
Yes, yes, and perhaps there are some uninhabited islands also, right? Wherein such
Exactly.
sources can be put and they can be used for hydrogen generation and transport that
Yes,
hydrogen to mainland India.
exactly. Yeah. So that's
Wonderful.
why I mean, all those remote areas where we can have other resources, but we don't have energy sector, so we can put it there and combine those different resources to generate and develop a different sort of opportunities, and this will
Wonderful.
generate a lot of different type of job opportunities which we are targeting. Because
Wonderful.
in currently the youth unemployment is also a concern,
True.
and with this
Absolutely.
sort of application we want to engage as well as to give them opportunities so that they can become self-reliant in that sense.
True. Yeah, as far as nuclear renewable is concerned, I think one of the drawback of renewable is, I think the employment generation potential that it has in comparison to nuclear.
Yes.
So it's, I mean, in the long term, it may lead to jobless growth in India if we go solo, by renewable.
Yeah, we don't
So
want to have
wonderful.
it, but let's see.
Wonderful, impressive. So, have you come across some of the stakeholders who have shown, the kind of interest in microreactor as such, and then in your project in particular?
Yeah. Actually, we are already in discussion with some of the industries, and the good news is that recently I saw this Madras IIT Madras news from Department of Atomic Energy. They are already going in line with having small reactors and micro reactors in
Okay,
public domain, which
okay,
is opening a good opportunity. So,
yes,
um, if you see, the major stakeholders are like government sectors,
hmm,
the private industries,
yes,
and Atomic Energy Commission, because a regulator is also there.
yeah,
So all of them are, especially with the last week's reports only, I
hmm,
see there is a big change coming up,
yeah,
and they all are going in line with this, with the direction of small and
yes,
micro reactors in this direction. So things are changing, and we see there are many stakeholders which are really interested. So in when we launched Sookshma, there are many industrial people who came to us who want to collaborate.
yeah.
There are many individuals or people who are related to the finance world. They want to join it.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes. even more wonderful is this, that we wanted to have only indigenous contribution.
Okay.
So we
That's
are
great.
in the beginning we wanted to have only the people who are Indian and who are from Indian
Mm-hmm.
uh, industrial area should contribute, because that's, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we want to develop the indigenous supply chain.
Oh,
And so we were really happy that we received all those interests from the Indian
that's
participants, Indian
that's great.
industries.
That's great. So
So
yeah.
that's how our stakeholders are right now.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, in terms of policy interventions or some incentive by government side, what are
Mhm.
your expectations? So that it can influence the supply and then demand side of this market.
It's like, see, we have a lot of expectations, and we have already spoke about it in many platforms, including India nuclear business platform as well. There are certain things that all these policy regulations which require to be changed or which require to be modified or updated.
Hmm.
I mean, government is already doing it, but what we expect that if it is in line with our timelines, it will be better, and that's what we expect first. Secondly, we want to have a better public-private partnership,
Hmm.
which already existing. It will be nice that if vision is bigger. Right now, what I see, especially in Indian nuclear industry from the private sector, they are having a narrower vision, or they are dependent on the government's vision. I
Yes,
just want to have this industry should also have their own
correct,
vision,
correct.
their own timeline, and
Yes.
their own efforts in that sense. And this will help to bring all of this together for the country.
So here,
And
when you
there
are
will be
talking about
one,
industry, I think you mean by the application industry, right? For example, steel, fertilizers, and then aluminum. Those who would have a requirement, for clean energy. Uh,
yes, yes. But
in,
but I mentioned for both the industries. Once
okay,
these are the resources industries, but there are industries who are working for the nuclear sector already.
okay, yes,
So
yes,
I want to have them as well to have a bigger vision
bigger
to
vision,
be involved in
correct.
those sort of activities and that sort of goals.
Yeah,
There will be one challenge, which is the workforce. And
yes,
that's what we are already trying to address right from the beginning. We have already signed in cooperation agreement with the IIT Bombay to have a training program to train the young individuals and encourage them to be the part of this industry. Not necessarily that you need to learn neutronics and design a reactor, but there are many facets where you can contribute. But this is something we are addressing, and this is where the other industrial stakeholders will play a role as well.
wonderful, wonderful.
So that's what we are trying.
Oh, great. And then, what is your take on, the interest shown by these application industries that I was mentioning, that would have, really to go for energy transition and to basically, find an alternative for clean energy requirement. We understand they don't have enough confidence, as far as renewables are concerned. So nuclear can basically fill up, this demand. So, what is your experience? You might have interacted with them.
Yeah, it's so this comes from my own personal experience. So
What's
at one point of time, I was the consultant to one of the furnace industry in Mumbai, and they're doing really good. And there I realized that this sector requires a lot of energy. They need to have a constant supply of energy as well. And I can tell you, this will be a really good solution for them. And as I was mentioning, you have a really high heat which is
mm,
being generated from here. And imagine if you can take an example of it, steel industry or even
yes,
a small steel industry. Okay, like as I mentioned, we are trying to address or include MSMEs.
yes,
So if you have a reactor, you have electrical furnace, and everything is like available to you 24/7.
yes, yes.
What else
True.
you need in
Yes.
that sense?
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
And that too, low carbon,
True.
low emission. what else you were expecting. So
Absolutely.
that's why
Absolutely.
we decided to come up with this small power rating, so
Yes.
that it can address all the sectors. For example, if you want to have a bigger
Hmm.
power requirement, you can have multiple modules.
True, 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 true.
That's
Absolutely.
easy.
So
But if
nuclear
you
can
have a smaller
basically
one, yeah,
cater to the requirements, clean energy requirements of these entire application industries, and then it can also ensure their business sustainability in the long term. You know,
exactly.
so that's precisely
And for industries, I feel like a base load is the basic requirement, and
true.
that's what we want to address specifically for the industry, that you will have a constant base load for dedicatedly for you, and
Wonderful,
that will
wonderful, Dr. Nitendra. It was really a great conversation with you.
with pleasure.
Very interesting points you have brought out, and thank you very much for taking out your time.
Thanks
So
to you
we,
too.
so viewers, with this, we would like to wind up this special episode of NBP Hot Seat. For any questions or queries for Dr. Nitendra or for NBP, please drop in your message in the comment section below. We will get back to you as soon as possible. And also stay tuned for our upcoming fifth edition of NBP's annual India conference, INBP 2024, which is based on new nuclear and energy transition and scheduled for November later this year in Mumbai. With this, we are signing off. Bye bye. Have a nice day.